there, everybody. This is Kristen from Teaching Balance, and I'm here with you with this week's mindfulness meditation practice. We are still in the month of cultivating self-awareness, and we've explored how to do that. We've talked about the value of doing it. But now, since this is our last practice in this month, I thought I would allow our focus for this week to be acknowledging of the fact that cultivating one's self-awareness does have a little bit of a, I guess you could say, shadow side. The phrasing I think I often talk about with meditators as they get into it more and more is that there's a little bit of a burden to it. And so here's what I mean by that. So before you begin this journey of exploring mindfulness and working toward cultivating greater mindful awareness or mindful self-awareness or metacognition, whatever words you want to use, prior to embarking on that and working towards getting into it, most of us are just kind of like, going through our lives, just kind of experiencing things. And we have thoughts, of course, and we might have thoughts about our thoughts, but there just isn't that same level of being aware from the witness perspective, from sort of an external perspective, you could say, the higher self perspective of what's going on in the mind. We aren't really seeing it with as much clarity as we begin to once we start meditating and practicing. And you've heard that expression, ignorance is bliss. And I don't know if I were to go that far, but the idea behind it is that we never perhaps quite realized what was going on in our minds to the degree that we do once we start meditating. Now, particularly for beginning meditators, as soon as you try to be present and sit and meditate, of course, that's when the cacophony begins, where you're like, kind of just aghast at how much, at least I was, how much thinking and judging and reacting and, everything all over the place, certainly during practice itself. And then as you continue and your metacognition, your mindful self-awareness becomes even more well-developed, it's not even about noticing what's going on while you're practicing. It's about noticing what's going on in your mind kind of almost all the time, or certainly a lot more. Now, here's the shadow side. Sometimes that too can be sort of at best disconcerting, at worst perhaps horrifying, and I'm exaggerating slightly just because of the humor, but I would definitely have probably used that word for myself, where it's like, goodness gracious, like it is just nonstop. And here's where the beauty of what we practice with our meditation: acceptance, self-compassion, acknowledging but not judging. So that same quality of relating to our experience on the cushion, which you've heard me say, so many times before, to just be present with how things are, even if they're not necessarily how you would like them to be, to come to it without expectation, without judgment, without trying to fix it and make it better. And I really do think that a big part of that is bringing compassion to ourselves when we see just quite how mad it all can be in our internal experience. So that is just something I wanted to acknowledge. And if you have noticed that as your practice continues and grows and evolves, I want you to know that that is, I think, rather common. But the good news is, even though you have this, for lack of a better word, burden of being that much more self-aware than the average person, and therefore kind of witnessing to everything that's going on in your mind, you also have the tools to be able to relate to it more skillfully. So you have, like I said, compassion, acceptance, non-judgment, or at least an inclination towards those things, even if we don't necessarily achieve them all the time. So just wanted to kind of put that out there because that's something I noticed over the course of my practice. And of course, practice isn't linear. I feel like it's very cyclical, and you could even say it's a big swirly, who knows. But the point is, we can have those moments where we're just kind of taken aback by where our mind goes. And I don't know if I would ever want to go back to that ignorance is bliss state of being, but it's really important that we bring those other qualities to that recognition of our internal experience. And of course, the best way to do that is to do so through our practice. You've heard me say before, think of it like in the same way we refer to sports practice, like soccer practice. It's not the only thing that the players do in and of itself. It is in preparation for being out in the world, on the field of play, so to speak. So let's go ahead and get in our practice. In this case, it's mindfulness. So if you haven't already, inviting in some of those deeper, longer, slower belly breaths. That abdominal breathing in and of itself activates our body's relaxation response. So even if you don't sit for the whole time, or even if you don't sit at all, giving yourself a moment to take a few long, slow, deep belly breaths can immediately impact how you're dealing with and responding to whatever's going on for you in your life in that moment. At this point, the eyes have either closed or the gaze is lowered. It's not about interacting with our visual field, but instead allowing ourselves just to calm and settle. And the reminder about posture is that it's best if you can embody a quality of relaxed alertness. So we are allowing ourselves to relax into this, but we also aren't trying to go to sleep. We aren't letting our minds just wander lazily wherever it wants to go. Instead, we're very alert and aware of what's going on in our mind. And as a way to, I guess you could almost say, contain this awareness, we choose to rest our attention on an anchor, on the sensations of the breath, on sounds from moment to moment, or on sensations in the body, either the body in its entirety or just one part, if that feels like it has a little bit more ease for you. since we touched on it in the intro, allowing yourself to bring to this practice an attitude of acceptance of how things are, letting go of any striving to improve, evolve, achieve. We're taking a break from all of that. And instead, you're just non-judgmentally observing your moment-to-moment experience. I often refer to it as being like a very objective scientist, just making notes in the clipboard from moment to moment regarding what is occurring in this experiment. Could be, shaking leg or thoughts about the day or whatever it might be. Just noticing where the mind is now. If you'd like, you can label it. If you found yourself planning, imagining, recalling, whatever it might be, just notice it. And if it's interesting to you, you can even almost take a mental snapshot of what were the images in your mind just now. A picture of whatever movie was playing in your mind in that moment. And then when you feel ready, we're just going to let it go and bring your attention once again back to the present, to this place of rest, where we take a break from not following our thoughts like we do all day long. So for the final minute or so, let's just sit together in mindful awareness until the bell. All right, that's our 10 minutes. That's all I've got. So, as always, thank you so much for taking this time for yourself. And thank you for allowing me to accompany you on this journey. And I will see you next week. Take care. Bye.